Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome everybody to the Hockey Think Tank podcast, brought to you by the hockeythinktank.com, a website for all players, parents, and coaches to go to get a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today, guys. This is a podcast that we've been waiting for a long time, and I think that you, the listeners, have been waiting for a long time, because we have brought on the founder of a site that we love to talk about on this podcast, myhockeyrankings.com. Neil Lodin. What a conversation we had with Neil. And obviously we talk about My Hockey Rankings on this podcast quite a bit, but it was really cool to get him on here to talk about the site and to talk about the value of it, talk about the misconceptions of it. And it ended up being really, really awesome. So before we do get over to Neil, though, let's bring on the talent of the podcast, the one Jeffrey J. Hulavecchio. Vex, and your eyebrows, what's going on today?
Not much, doggy. We're recording this on Wednesday. And today was the first day that I had the college team that I work with every year, Maryville University ACHA D1 men's team. Today was our first day in the gym. I had a captain's practice after today. So super fun getting back to like working with the team during the season. Absolutely love that. So much fun getting to work with the same guys throughout the year in season. So that's really exciting. And then I'm on the clock, man. It's like baby time, bro.
Oh,
it's
yes,
like,
it is.
It's like, my phone literally just died. So I was about to say my phone always has to be on and volume up. It literally just died.
You're failing already.
Yeah, I already blew it. The worst stat ever. But yeah, we're on the clock. We had an appointment today and they measured her belly and everything's going well. And we're almost there, man. Crazy.
Unbelievable. Well, there we go. Great day in the Scott household, because all three of my kids are now in school.
Wow. You made it.
And it's so funny. I remember, I forget where it was. I think we were living in Ithaca at the time. Yeah, it was Ithaca. And like the bus would go, this was pre us having kids, and the bus would go by for the first day of school. And like the moms had this like champagne party, like out on the street. They were all drinking champagne. It's like, whatever, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting ready to go to the rink. And I'm like, man, like they're drinking like champagne, like the kids are. And now I'm like, join me in. I'm like, yes, this is a cause for celebration. Oh man, the last couple of weeks have been crazy, just with like, you know, M's working a lot and I'm working a lot, and the kids are like done with camps, but like school hasn't started yet. So there's not like a whole lot of childcare stuff going on. And so we're mixing and matching, and like the kids are in school now. I felt like a free man during the day. It was unbelievable. So
savage.
Yeah. So that's what you get to look forward to. Champagne 7:30 a.m.
Champagne
showers. Dude, how like what are you like feeling like? You're like nervous? Are you excited? A little bit of both, like
Everybody
scared? Like where are you at?
Everybody's like, you nervous? And I'm like, no, I'm not nervous. But also I have like literally the last 6 weeks done every project possible to the house that we ever wanted to do. And I like
or you got somebody to do it.
Wow. I mean, like I do some of it and then I pay people to do it. I work harder to pay more people to come over and do more shit to my house.
I just wanted to make that clarification, because I could see our listeners be like, oh yeah, Vex got the hammer out.
Yeah, I did. I put the hammer in my sauna the other day. I was hammering the bench, you know. Hitting the old nails, if you will. I put up the hilarious, I have this hilarious, it's probably like 6 to 8 feet tall banner from Japan. And it's a caricature of me with all this Japanese writing. I got my garage done. So I put that up in the garage. It looks friggin' hilarious. But yeah, no, I'm not like nervous, but I've been like relentlessly attacking the house, trying to get it perfect. Like, you know, just subconsciously like nesting, you know, they're just like, I gotta get shit done for baby.
Yeah.
So it's, but it's exciting. We're super excited. I can't wait.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
And it was a really good episode last week with your boy Larry Hagner from the Dad Edge.
Yeah. What a timely episode, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Timely episode.
I got so many emails and DMs from dads.
Yeah. He's phenomenal.
A couple of them being like, I needed to take a look in the mirror. And
yeah,
I think Larry was like, I was sleeping at the wheel for a long time or whatever, you know? And so like potentially life altering, changing episode for some people out there. So that's what we try to do, guys. We try to bring on guests that are a lot smarter than us. So
share it.
Provide some awesome perspective. And this episode, I know for you went completely different than you thought it was going to go.
Really happy we had this episode.
Yeah, really this is really good, guys. This is really good.
We've dumped on my hockey rankings for a long time, but we're really dumping on hot, steamy dumps all over was how people use my hockey rankings. My hockey rankings are a tool. They do not do things bad or good. They're just a tool. And the way that people use them and talk about them and let it infiltrate their every move and thought process and action is absolutely redonkulous. And the founder of the app, as you will hear, thinks the same thing. He wants us to be using it for these certain purposes and the way he wants it used and created it for and all these things you're going to hear in the episode. And it's actually wild and unreal. And he's an awesome guy. And I never thought I would say this, but I love my hockey rankings and I love the guy. I love him. Great guy. Great guy.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like for a long time. And I told Neil this after we got off, but like for a long time, I had a real big problem with my hockey rankings and still do for the ways that you have eloquently laid out. Because every time you'd walk into a rink, hey, how's your kids' team doing? Well, they're ranked this and they're going and playing this and they're ranked this. And it was all my hockey rankings and people using it. One of the worst consequences, I think, of it, and you'll hear all the good of it, but teams don't play local teams because they feel like it'll hurt their my hockey rankings. Yeah. Their strength of schedule and stuff like that. So I know that was a big issue here in Chicago for a while at the tier 1 level. The teams are, I think there's 6 now, but there used to be 4 or 5, and teams wouldn't play other teams because, whatever.
Stupid.
And it's like, okay, so we're going to get on a plane,
spend all this money,
$1,000 to go play these games. And I'm not saying you can't do that once or twice a year, but way more when you have people that are 20, 30 miles away from you, who the game score is going to be, not that much different at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it was really good to kind of hear Neil's perspective on why he built the site, what the site is used for. We talked about the algorithm and kind of how things are computed, which I didn't really have a good grasp on, but I feel like I have a much better grasp on now. And then one of the cool things is he's been doing this for 20 years or something like that now. And he could tell the teams that kind of focus on development versus the teams that focus on the rankings kind of stuff. That was pretty interesting to hear him talk about that, but this was a really cool conversation. I'm really glad that we had him on.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you guys are going to love this one. It blew my socks right off. So enjoy it.
We're still going to harp on my hockey rankings or the way we have to caveat it. We can harp on the way that people choose to bastardize it.
Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, this is a great episode. So before we do get over to Neil, though, we do have some people to thank. First, want to thank our title sponsor, icehockeysystems.com, the best website out there for everything and anything coaching, education. They have over 1,000 drills that you can use in your practices, whiteboard explanations from incredibly smart hockey people, the ability to go in there and draw your drills up digitally, send them out to your players and families before practices, build these huge drill libraries. And the best part about it now is we've partnered with them to do an associations platform where you can get this for every single coach in your organization. Absolute game changer. Go to icehockeysystems.com today and look up that associations tab, and you will get your coaches an unbelievable present for the beginning of the season. Jeffrey, I believe it is now your turn.
Want to thank Train Heroic. Train Heroic is the unbelievable app that allows me to work with so many individuals, teams, organizations around the world during the season, off season. Now it's during the season. And over the last week, I had another USHL team, another NAHL team, and 2 U14 teams reach out and say they're going to sign up to work with me.
And I heard there was another D3 team potentially that's on.
2 actually. Sorry, there's 2 D3 teams.
One of their head coaches today actually, and he.
Oh, really? Let's go.
So we'll
awesome.
Talk offline about that.
Yeah, baby. 2 D3 schools that are going to work with me too. And one of them, maybe both of them, the players are paying for.
That is the case for the one that I spoke to.
All right, it's both of them. So I'm giving it to them for like very, 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 very cheap because I was like, I love the initiative. This is awesome. I'd love to help you guys. So I'm super excited. And those players reaching out to me, nothing cooler. So really, really excited to help those schools as well. So Train Heroic has allowed me to do this and help so many players at such a hilariously cheap price. So I cannot thank Train Heroic enough. If your team or organization wants to work with me, reach out to me. I work with pretty much everybody who reaches out however I can. So please don't be afraid to reach out. Also want to thank Cure Nutrition. Cure Nutrition is a CBD company. I got their gummies right here. All right. Some CBD gummies. Take after a podcast on the days that we do these a little bit later and just help me recover. I work out a lot. I do a physical job. I'm always burning the brain oils. You know what I'm saying? So that really helps with the 14 conks that I had. And if anybody has any questions on how to use CBD, what it's for, what it helps with, all the different ways, the ways that it works within your body, like, please reach out to me. Okay. I know quite a bit about endocannabinoid nutrition here. So please reach out to me or go to their website, curenutrition.com, type in my discount code GMBM, save that money.
Boom. And thank you to new sponsor Crossbar. What an unbelievable website, end-to-end software solution for managing your team's programs and your whole organization. Guys, I work with a lot of different youth organizations, and the ones that have Crossbar that have switched over, like, dude, absolute game changer for the operations and the streamlining of things for their organization. So what do they have that you can use on their website? Back-end design. They have registration set up in minutes for lessons, drop-ins, and anything you need family-wise when it comes to registering your kid for their organization. There's a scheduler in there for the club to really maximize the ability to be organized in your scheduling. 5-star mobile app with communications with the club and with your teams, financial tools and reporting that makes that stuff extremely easy when it comes to the budget, volunteer management, and then facility and rink management as well. We had Brian Bonin on the podcast, who works for Crossbar now, a couple weeks ago. That was one of the most downloaded we've ever done. Minnesota hockey guy, and it was awesome podcast. But go to crossbar.org today and check it out, especially if you're an organization that's really looking to streamline your operations and make things a whole lot easier for yourself and club leadership and for your families. And lastly, we want to thank Helios Hockey. Helios is an awesome product. It's a sensor that you put in your shoulder pads that gives you real-time data and feedback on your play, particularly when it comes to your stride and your stride mechanics, and a hustle score, which the kids absolutely love because this thing starts buzzing as soon as you get moving. And it's awesome. There's also a leaderboard where you can compare yourself to other kids around your age and level from all around the world. We have a discount code with them because they are awesome partners. And the discount code is Think Tank, one word. And if you enter that at helioshockey.com, you can get 20% off your pro annual or your pro 24-month subscriptions. Also, they do this for teams. And if you go to helioshockey.com/teams, you can get a nice little deal for your entire team. Also, thank you to all of our amazing listeners. We love you guys. If you could do a solid for us, the only thing that we would ask is that you could share us with your networks. And we are trying to make the hockey world a better place. And if you think we're doing a pretty decent job of doing that, the more ears that we can get into, the more of a positive impact that we can make. So anytime you share us, or even if you like our posts on social media, you comment on them, you download us, you follow us wherever you get your podcast app, whether it's on Apple, iTunes, your phone, Spotify, Google Play, we're everywhere. If you could follow us on there and shoot us some ratings and reviews, that would go a long, long way. And we love you guys. We thank you so much. We want to bring on the best guests that can talk about the best things in hockey. And this is particularly a juicy one when it comes to the youth hockey world, and a lot of great perspective from this one. So without further ado, here we go with myhockeyrankings.com founder Neil Lodin. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Mental health should be something that we prioritize in our lives that are often overscheduled, intense, and can be chaotic and stressful. BetterHelp is an awesome resource to really prioritize mental health and help us be the best versions of who we want to be. We are huge believers in therapy and have talked about it multiple times on our podcast. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and really designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can also switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Bet on the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2023, all rights reserved. We are so excited to have on this episode of the podcast. He is the founder of myhockeyrankings.com, Neil Lodin. Neil, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, and I appreciate you guys letting me come on.
Oh man, I'm so excited to have you on here, and I wouldn't say that like Vex and I we take some shots at My Hockey Rankings for sure. We definitely take our shots at My Hockey Rankings at times throughout the year, but I know that this is going to be a phenomenal conversation that is going to tell so many great things about what you guys are doing and what the site is used for, and how it's really helped to elevate hockey in not just the United States, but in Canada and beyond. And so first question that I have for you is, what's the origin story of My Hockey Rankings? What was going on in your life when you're like, hey, you know what, we need to build this framework to maybe better some situations in hockey? How'd you start it?
So it's a pretty interesting story. My son's squirt minor team at the time was really struggling. So Indianapolis based, coach from Toronto, team manager who was a basketball guy, knew nothing about hockey. So none of the two main guys on the team, and I was an assistant coach, the two main guys on the team knew nothing about U.S. youth hockey. And we were struggling to play the right teams. In almost every case, we had a bunch of 15-0 weekends where literally it's just a mess. And about halfway through the season, we're at B-dubs, no joke. And we're talking, and the head coach looks at me and says, "Hey Neil, you got like a math and a computer background. You like the research stuff. You need to solve this problem for us because he saw us starting to lose 2 to 4 of our players and their families. they were like, this is not worth it. They didn't want to go on the road with us anymore because it was a waste of time and money. We were dropping, as a family, and again, you got to go back 22 years ago. We were dropping probably $500 to $800 on a weekend, going to Detroit or Chicago and then playing the wrong teams. So he looked at me and said, can you solve this problem? And I'm like, I don't know. So I, just first started just researching. And then I realized, some of these clubs have multiple teams. Records mean nothing. Like it actually, the first month of doing the research didn't enlighten me at all. And then I'm like, you know what? I need an algorithm. I need to be able to figure out because a 20-1 team could be worse than a 1-20 team, depending on the level, of play in who they're playing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is just too complex. And went to town to build an algorithm, used a fictional perfect tournament of 4 teams to do that, came up with the algorithm, and then started researching teams and who they were playing, and made a few mistakes early on, didn't know how many teams a certain club had. They had 2 different teams instead of 1, and I put all the scores against 1 team or something like that. But went through this whole process of learning youth hockey. And ultimately I didn't solve the problem that year for our team. It was too late, but I set the foundation for the following season.
What year would this have been, Neil?
This was 2003-04.
Okay.
Was the first year that I really that I really dug into it. So
wow, that's great. That's great. And it's still obviously alive and thriving and doing great stuff. But yeah, continue.
So 200 teams, all squirt teams, 200 year 1. Year 2, some people wanted me to do peewees, but my kid was still a squirt. And it's like, okay, this is a problem. I got a full-time job, all that kind of stuff. So had to end up, figuring out how to get other people, allowing other people to help. And, every year I just started adding on, growing it, figuring out more about hockey. It started mostly in the Midwest, to be honest, because I was Indianapolis based, and we were playing Chicago and Detroit, went up to Ontario, but we were Midwest based. But over time, it enveloped all of the U.S. and eventually all of Canada, not just Ontario, which is the primary point of interplay, quite frankly. But we do interplay outside of that. Excuse me as well. So it took years in some cases to get there.
I can imagine that was a lot of groundwork that had to be laid for sure. Well, you mentioned the algorithm. And just for people, and I'm not even quite sure exactly how it works, but obviously there's this ranking system to rank teams based on a bunch of different variables that happen throughout the season. Could you talk a little bit about I don't know if the right word is the algorithm, but what are the basis points and what are the things that you guys use to rank the teams? I don't know if that's secret knowledge or not. But,
no, we're pretty open about it. And we have a math page. Most people, I'm going to be honest, I don't think most people know that we have a math page, on every team's page once the season gets going. It's technically out there now, but there's no data because we won't rank or rate teams until the last Wednesday of September, when we have enough mass that we can start putting this stuff together.
Yeah.
So talking about the algorithm itself, it is current season only. It is game scores only. And it's pretty much that simple. It is your game scores. It is looking at, I will say this, it is using a maximum goal differential. We in the early days, we did a lot of research, and it was mostly me, but I also had a a number of advisors and that kind of stuff where we were looking at, to be honest with you, we were looking at maximum goal differential for a game. And what we were trying to do was assess where we thought it was most accurate. Not in someone could make an argument, well, if you would set it to 5, it would, there would be fewer running up of game scores or something like that. And I think that's true. It could prevent, some running up of games. However, we were looking at it from an accuracy perspective, and we ultimately settled on 7 as what we believed was the most accurate. Because what happens naturally is some teams do stop adding game scores. And at some point, you don't want to penalize teams for not running it up further. But you also need to show some difference. If there's a big difference between teams, I'm gonna say it this way. I've done a lot of research into the question of algorithms. And ultimately, when you're ranking and rating a diverse group of teams with different capabilities, you have to use margin of victory or goal differential. We use it we call it AGD on our website, average goal differential, or GD, goal differential. You have to use it when you're trying to get a diverse set of teams. If you're ranking the teams in the NHL, goal differential is not the methodology. College hockey, like NCAA D1, again, probably not the best way to do it. It works. It's probably not the best. Once you get down to like ACHA, where there's a fair amount of difference between teams, college club hockey, yes, it matters. And all the way down into things like, the youth hockey world, where you've got AAA, AA, A, B, rec, whatever. And in some cases, we are bringing all these things together into one ranking pool, so that, because there's not clear lines between AAA and AA. There's not clear lines between AA and A, or A and B, or B and rec. Like there's all these regional differences and stuff like that. So we don't break it down and say, hey, who's the best B team in the country? We're looking at, both at a national and state level, rating teams, and not, the system does not worry or care about how many A's or B's or C's after the name. It makes no difference. So you can see, a B team being ranked higher than a AAA team. And in some cases, that's actually a real thing, because almost every travel team in Massachusetts is AAA. And in some parts of the country, they have decent B-level travel. It's getting watered down. So maybe there's only a few cases of that these days, but it's a real thing. So the goal was an algorithm that reflected that diverse difference from top to bottom, and seemed to reflect accurately all the way down the spectrum. And I think we've accomplished that.
Do you have is there a sliding scale? Like if I'm the 100th team and I beat the first team, is that weighed more in the algorithm?
Yeah, like strength of schedule.
Strength of schedule. Like does that?
That's an excellent question. It's an excellent question. So, let me talk about that a little bit, and it gets complex. So every game counts equally. It's not a golf handicap. You don't get any. We don't just look at your top 5 games, or your top 10 games. We count them all, and they're all equal. There's not one's more important either because it was more recent or because it was better or something like that. Nothing along those lines. But we when you talk about strength of schedule, you mentioned strength of schedule. So what happens is whether you beat the best team in the country or you lost to them, your strength of schedule is going to go up because you played a good team. Now, what happens for most teams is when they play a good team, their strength of schedule goes up, but their average goal differential goes down because they lose, and that's okay. In the way the system works, in theory, it computes an average performance rating for your team. And let's say we're halfway through the season, you got 25 games in, and let's say you're you're one of these really good teams that plays very consistently game to game. And there are definitely teams that don't do that, but I'm going to say that your team is that way. You play consistently. And if you go out and play another consistent game, whether you play a team that is considerably better than you and you lose by a fair amount, or a team that's, significantly worse than you and you win by a fair amount, there's a good chance that's just going to come back to the average because your strength of schedule will go up if you're playing the better team, but your goal differential will come down and they'll offset each other. And it was just another average game for your team. The question that how you move up relative to others or move down is you're playing at a higher level than your average performance has been. And again, it's taking into account how good your opponents are and how well you're doing against them.
Right. So if it's not like a one size fits all kind of thing, like if you play the number one team in the country and you beat them, it's not like that in its entirety is going to make you go up, but it is going to get your strength of schedule up.
Well, and if you beat them, then you really kind of outperformed. Now, if you're number two and you're very close to them, okay, maybe it barely has an impact. But if you're, 10 or 30 or something like that.
So outperforming your average is what makes people go up, or on the converse side, like if you're not performing at your average, that will make you go down.
Yes, that is. And if a team is rated 3 goals better than you, 3 points better than you, which points equate to goals. If they're rated 3 goals better than you and you go play them and you lose by 2, that actually will make your average slightly better. Slightly. Depends how many games into the season we are, some other factors, but it'll help you a little bit. If you go and lose to them by 5, it'll hurt you a little bit because you were only supposed to lose by 3, theoretically, based on your both teams' averages. So that's at a high level. That's how it works. So you can go 0 for 3 on a weekend and move up, and another team can go 3-0 on a weekend and move down, depending on who they're playing. It's possible because you're performing at a higher level. Again, the key thing that these ratings are computing is an average performance rating for your team based on your game scores, who you're playing and how well you're doing against that. And it's averaging it, again, you're going to play some good teams and get crushed. You're going to play some bad teams and crush them. It's computing an average of and you're going to tie some games, almost everyone's out there, with some really tight games.
So that's a really good breakdown of it and helps me to understand. And to be very transparent and upfront, I did literally no research on my hockey rankings before this interview. And the reason why is because I wanted to go into this kind of like an amateur beginner, like many of our listeners are going to be, who need to hear what this stuff is for the first time and how it really works. Let me ask you this, because what is it? Einstein? I can't remember. Is it Einstein? For every for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction or something like that. You ever heard of that? Newton? Is that Newton?
I've heard it, but I'm not going to attribute it to one or the other. Or
I actually think it might be
a third guy.
I don't
know. I'm sorry.
So we all know the saying anyway, but so for we're talking about strength of schedule, we're talking about average game score and all these things. And I think you laid it out really well right there. So the equal and opposite reaction. Oh, Steph says it's Newton. You were right, Vex. There you go. Western Michigan. Let's go, baby. So I've heard plenty of times of teams, there's a minute left in the game. They're down 3-2. there's a face-off in the offensive zone. With a minute left, they're down by 1 goal.
And they don't
pull their goalie for fear of that's going to hurt. Like if we get scored on, it's 4-2 versus like there's not a really good chance that we're going to score to tie it. And we're so worried about our ranking that like they don't pull their goalie to try to win the game.
Stupid.
Yeah, but like I've heard that plenty of times. And Ian, that's your son, Neil. I'm sure you have too. What would you say to that? After kind of like going through, how it operates, how it works. What would you say to coaches and like as it relates to that?
Yeah, I think I have some good perspective. I watched the algorithm work firsthand with a son playing the game for a number of years. And, I don't have a grandson. I don't coach a team. I have no vested interest in youth hockey at this point in time. Like I'm not intimately involved in anything other than my hockey rankings, my hockey tournaments, full transparency. But like, I don't have a vested interest in a team or a club, being, ranked high or ranked low, but I have seen it work. And I've seen it firsthand, how it kind of, how it accurately can reflect, kind of the performance of teams over time. As it relates specifically to this, but it gets into a larger thing about development. And I could make an argument that pulling a goalie in the last minute is not a big quote unquote development activity, but I'm going to kind of lump it in with other development activities and say, first off, if you're trying to coach, and the only one that's really doing this is the head coach. I mean, team manager, parents, even kids to a degree. No, you guys are all fulfilling your role. The only one that I think has the opportunity to kind of manipulate what's happening on the ice in a significant way is the coach. And so if you're coaching to prevent an empty net goal, and the truth be told, the system counts an empty net goal just like a 5-on-5 goal or a power play goal. They all count the same, and there's a reason for it. And if you want to get into it, we can get into it, but they all count the same. And if you're saying, yeah, I don't think my kids are good enough to score, an empty, an extra man advantage goal by pulling our goalie, so I'm just going to leave my goalie in. I mean, I do think to some degree you're preventing some development of preparing your team, because like if you're going to nationals later in the season or something, like if you are a good team,
yeah,
you want to develop all aspects of your team.
Yeah.
And so you should be doing that. Could it bite you in the butt? Like, could one goal bite you in the butt on this game? Yes, it could. Is that going to have in a 50-game season, and realize many youth teams are playing up to 75?
More than that, yeah.
In a 50-game season, you giving up one extra goal, which, by the way, you might have got one extra goal once or twice during the season, and all this offsets. But if you only gave up extra goals and you never scored one, and let's just say one extra goal, you gave up one goal that you could have prevented because you shouldn't have pulled your goalie, let's say. In a 50-game season, that's 0.02 on your rating. That is almost nothing. 0.02. That's how much of a difference. Now, earlier in the season, it actually, if you've
just based on sample size, right? Like,
yes,
at the beginning of the season, there's a small sample, so that
if you've only played 5 games, it's 0.20. If you played 10 games, it's 0.10. At 50 games, it's 0.02. And the thing is, my point is, and I have a larger point around this, which is if you are coaching this game for the ratings, then you're almost always sacrificing development
and an idiot.
and hurting your and actually and hurting your team's long-term rating. And I have a saying, it's where you finish, not where you start. So, if you're more focused about where you start, if you're more concerned about where you start, you're missing the point. And so, yes, sometimes you switch up the lines. Sometimes you do things that don't maybe optimize the perform. You try a kid at defense because you think he might have that mindset. Now that might hurt you. Like, it can have a short-term negative impact, but it might open up, oh, this guy is a defenseman, or we're going to have him play defense on the power play, and now he has some experience on playing D, and we're going to be a better team for that. Whatever there's all these cases. But if you're not thinking about it from a development perspective, and you're literally saying, oh, we can't give up a goal, my take on that would be you're hurting the development of your team, which long-term hurts your rating. Another one is, I'll give you the example. You're playing a team that you're 2.5 goals better than. You're halfway through the third period and you're up by 2. My example was that you're going to underperform at the averages right now. That could have a very small, but maybe a little bit of an impact. So are you out there trying to get it to 3 goals? My take would be, at some point that third line needs time. You're up. I'm not saying you're overplaying at a 2-goal advantage, that you're overplaying the third line, but there's a time and a place where you double shift the third line to give them the reps. You not only, double shift the first line, at times, but you double shift the third line or whatever for development purposes. Because when you get to the end of the season, if you've short shifted that third line or fourth line, if you're like at a team that has a fourth line, if you're short shifting them, you're going to pay for it at the end of the season. You haven't had them on the ice at the times they needed to where they could really develop.
100%. It sounds like you're saying what we always say: develop early and often, and down the road you're going to be way more successful. And that's what really matters.
And your rating's going to reflect that at the end of the season. At the end of the season, there's teams whose ratings are going down, and there are teams that are going up.
Because think about it this way: if we're thinking about the math, if you start off slowly and you're because you're focusing on development, you're playing more players, your average rate of play
you're going to Jedi mind this
low.
right now.
Yeah, but now if you pick up, get hot Christmas and after, and now you're playing all these better teams and you're spanking them, you're dummying, and you've created a longer span between your average and who you're playing.
Yeah, you're outperforming your average.
You're outperforming. Bang,
the more
bang,
you get
bang,
better.
bang, 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 bang. Every game you're beating teams because you focused on development.
100%. And I can almost tell you at the end of the season who's doing what. Now there's a lot. Let me be honest. There's a lot of teams that we have on the website last 10 math, and it'll show you what their rating is over their last 10. A lot of teams, it's pretty much their season average, but some are definitely, cooking with gas at the end, doing much better. Some are like falling apart, and when you're looking at the end of February into March at teams and you're seeing what's going on, it almost invariably tells you what kind of strategy the coach was employing in the season.
That's really interesting. Can you dive a little bit more into that?
I would prefer to probably leave it at that. But
That's all right. We can read between the lines.
there are all kinds of exceptions to what I'm saying too, like, injuries in the season.
Right.
So I'm saying if your rating is going down, you probably focused either too much on ratings or you had some other issues with the team gelling, or because there's something happening at the end of the season where your performance is tailing. And again, it could be because you focused on ratings and not development, but it also could be, 3 of your studs have concussions and or broken arms, and
my last
you can't
year,
overgeneralize.
Yeah, for sure. You do the right thing, you're going to get rewarded more often than not. Law of averages is what he's saying here, and like my team that I coached the last year I coached U16 AAA with Mike Barra, who we've had on the podcast. Absolute beauty. Absolutely love the guy. We went like either 1-12 or 0-12 to start the year. And I remember after the first practice, I came in and I went to Bears, who was as coach, and I was like, "My God, we're going to lose a lot of games at the beginning of the year." And I think it was 1-12 or 0-12, but we were like, we're gonna hammer development. Like, we're not going to worry about winning at all. Development, like every time we got to do stuff in practice, dialed in details. And at the end of the year, I think we went 13-0-1. And we were just like a rocket ship going up. And so it's like, we didn't care about the rankings. We hated the rankings because, how people use them and talk about them and think about them, where it's like when you say, the guy who created the algorithm, he's telling you right now that he can tell if you're doing the right things coaching wise and organization wise. Literally, he can tell on the algorithm. Whereas if you're focusing on the algorithm, you might be being a dummy, so like, focus on development and the algorithm winds up going in your favor.
I mean, I'm 100% with you on this. And some people might.
Did we just become best friends? This is weird.
Topher's sitting here laughing because he's recognizing the contradiction that's kind of being spoken here.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't think it is either, because again, if you want to maximize your rating, maximize your development. Like make your team better. That's how you like.
That's awesome.
Don't do stupid crap like, never let the third line on the ice. Like, don't do that. And
as a former third liner, thank you for saying that.
Yes. So you're now understanding a little bit of, and this is stuff that I might not understand all that had I not had a son who I watched progress through it and was intimately involved in hockey, for years, where now I just look at it from the outside and I don't know these teams that well. And again, there can be valid reasons why teams kind of fall apart, etc., that have nothing to do with what I'm going to say, a coach that's focused on the ratings. There are other things, but what you guys know from playing hockey is coaching matters, and development matters. And if you're kind of focusing on those kind of things, I think the ratings will take care of themselves.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think like it's really easy to judge coaches based on how high you are in the rankings. But really in reality, like with a lot of what you're saying, it's like, are we outperforming where the ratings say we should be? Like that's a much better way to judge, if that's what you want to call it, coaches, because the team is getting better. Like at the end of the day, winning and losing, when you talk about like the importance of what we're doing here in youth hockey, it shouldn't be at the top of the list. Like how much better are our kids getting? How much better is our team getting? Those are the things that we should be really, focusing on when we're looking at the performance of the coaches that we have in our sport. And so I love the fact that there's almost like a tangible way, because like everybody wants objective data. Like it's really easy to make a judgment when you have objective data in front of you. And a lot of times the objective data that we look at is where are we on the totem pole? But you're giving us like a window into this where it's not necessarily where we at in the totem poles. How much are we getting better on the totem pole? How much are we improving? Not even necessarily to everybody else and what they're doing, but how much are we improving based upon where our equilibrium is at right now? Like, are we outperforming where we should be? Are we getting better with that? And that is another tangible thing that we can look at. Is that accurate?
I think you can, but I don't want to say that I'm an expert on how. Again, there's a lot of factors that can go into this stuff, and part of it is coaches and clubs at the highest level of the sport. I don't know if it's against the rules to say this. Recruit, whether it's directly or indirectly, and by indirectly I mean they maybe never reached out to Johnny. But Johnny knows they're one of the best clubs in the country, so Johnny wants to play for them, even if they didn't recruit Johnny. So sometimes it's not explicit recruiting, but they're attracting the best people. So it's a very
Switzerland thing to say. It's a very nice thing for you to say right there.
So if you're one of those clubs, you're already starting with this baseline of really talented kids. How do we measure what kind of difference you're making? I do think when you're at that level, it is about kids' long-term success in the sport. Getting, into juniors, maybe getting drafted, maybe, those kind of things. When you're talking at midget AAA, for example. But, that's not the entirety of the sport either. If you're talking about younger kids, the recruiting is a little bit less, but it depends on the metropolitan area. I am sure in some metropolitan areas, kids can play for 3 or 5 or 8 different AAA clubs.
Problem in a lot of places.
I'm sorry?
Huge problem in a lot of places. Not even at just the tier 1 level, but the tier 2 level too.
Yep, it is. Yeah. And what I think is that I'm worried about the concept of evaluating of exactly how you evaluate coaches, because some of it has to do with the club, not like the talent that they've inherited as opposed to what they've developed. It can't, I don't think it's an exact science on the difference between, what you were given and how you developed it. I think there's some gray area there.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about my hockey rankings and the algorithm and kind of how people use it. I'm interested to hear from you. Like, Vex and I used to joke all the time. Like, if you ask a parent how their kid is doing or how their kid's team is doing, one of the first things that they will say is their ranking and then how they did, particularly if they beat, teams with higher rankings or whatever. I feel like that adult ego part of it is how a lot of people, quote unquote, use my hockey rankings.
Well, all they do is say too, oh yeah, we're going to play 46, 42 and 37. Why are we going there?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Neil, how would you advise people to use the site to maximize the site? Because, when you first kind of came up with the idea for it, it was to make sure that your son's team was able to play good competition that was equal-ish to where they were at, so you can have good games. And I think you said there was a few 15-0 stinkers that you had when you went up to Chicago and to Detroit and stuff. Like, what would be some advice for the general public out there on how they can use my hockey rankings for good, that can help to enhance their son or daughter's team's experience in the game?
So I know that you didn't mean to ask an incredibly complex question. And then unfortunately you're asking a guy who sees nuance in everything. So you're asking a 10-hour long question, but let me give you some basics here. Number one, focus on rating, not on ranking. I get it that the top teams in the country like to talk about ranking. It's not necessarily, uber bad or anything like that, but the ratings have value whether you're number 1 or number 2,200 in the country. You literally can get some of the same things out of the ratings. Matter of fact, it's harder to get it if you're a top 5 team in the country, because it's hard to play teams that are considerably better than you and stretch your kids once in a while and stuff like that. But besides that point, there's value up and down the spectrum. And the real value has to do with ratings. Now, there are distinct differences between how coaches use it, how leagues, how tournaments, and how parents and kids may use it. But if you're talking about parents and kids, understanding who you're playing can add value. So going into a game, they're considerably better than you, they're considerably worse than you. It can change some different perspectives. Number one, if you're playing a team that's considerably worse than you and you're a first liner, you might not need to ask the question of, why am I never getting double shifted? And maybe the third line's getting double shifted. Why are we starting our backup goalie? He's not even that good. Like things that no, you now know why some of those things are going on. Play your role. It is a team sport. You are one of 17 kids or whatever the number is on that team, and understand it. And likewise for parents, it's not all about your kid. And that's the one thing that has not changed and will never change about the sport is every parent out there at times, and to varying degrees, wants it to be about their kid, and it's not. The coaches have a responsibility to the larger group. And if you understand a little bit more about who you're playing and what's going on in a given weekend, there is absolutely a time to double shift the first line, to win in an important game in a tournament, whatever. I think there's a time and a place that's acceptable. I don't want to say that you have to do it, but I'm going to say that's acceptable. Understand that. Now, if the coaches are always doing it, I think you have a valid gripe if you're a third line parent and you're literally your kid's not getting those opportunities to develop. There is
playing number 87. But this is such an interesting conversation, because I'm not gonna lie. I did no research. Obviously, Toph's the research guy. I'm the color guy here. And we know our roles. It's part of being a good team. I thought for sure that you were like somebody who is like, well, I want to rank my kid's team and I want them to be the best, because that's how I hear all the parents talking, right? It is so unreal to hear how you view all this, how you actually see the data coming in, and you can tell all of these things. And it's so multifactorial. Like, you're looking at so many different things, which allows you to know, are they developing them? Are they doing these things in quote unquote the right way or the wrong way? And it's actually this is a really cool conversation. It's not at all. Told me that you were on our side, thought the way that we think with development and stuff. We know where that leads to winning and all these other good things. But this is a wild conversation. This is really cool. Thank you for taking your time out of your day, because obviously you're having to go deep into some of this stuff. I wanted to ask something real quick though, because I haven't stopped thinking about it. When you first started with that first algorithm, is that something that you just keep tweaking to make it better and better and better, or is it still the first iteration of when you started it in 2003?
The algorithm is largely unchanged.
Wow.
We did tweak maximum goal differential in a game. The first 4 seasons, we played with it a little bit.
And that's that 7 number that you're talking about, right?
That's the 7 number.
So if you beat a team 7-0, or you beat a team 9-0, it holds no. It's still the same kind of score.
I'll do it different. If you beat them 7-0, or you beat them 21-1, you get a +7 for that.
Yep. Okay.
And essentially the simplest way to look at it is you take that opponent's rating and then you add the number of goals you beat them by, or you subtract the number you lost by. And that's almost your rating for that one game.
Rating, not ranking, right? Rating.
Yeah, rankings are only like literally we did not store rankings in the system until 5 years ago. Literally they were computed on the fly based on rating. But the site's gotten more complex, so we are saving the actual ranking now as a value in a field in our database. But literally for over 15 years we did not save the ranking because it's a byproduct of sorting teams by rating, and that's that is the focus. So back to if your team is a 90 and you play a 91 and you beat them by 1, you basically your performance for that game is 91 plus 1. You got a 92. That's better than your average. Your average is at 90. So you outperformed your average. Then the next game, you play another 90, like almost identical to you, and you lose to them by 2. Ooh, that's an 88. Okay. But if you take the average, and let's say you played those 2 games that week, that's all you played that week. Okay. We did a 92, an 88. We're a 90. We probably won't move much. Now, you say that, you probably won't move much. Now, where are the teams around you and what kind of weekends did they have? Because one of the complaints we often get is, hey, we went 4-0 on the weekend and we went down in the rankings. Well, who did you play? Did you really outperform your average? And how did the teams around you play on their weekend? And did they, and stuff like that? And how close were you to them? Because sometimes there's 5 teams within a hundredth of a point of each other. And then in other cases, there's no one within a quarter point of you or something like that. And as you go on in the season, I will say this, the more games you play, the slower the movement is, but still back to the thing that we talked about. There are still teams moving up and still teams moving down. It's not, the jumps aren't as big, but they're moving.
Did you tell us, maybe I'm already forgot it. Did you tell us like what the metrics are that you judge the games on, or is that not something you talk about, or like each value thing?
No, it's as simple as
goal differential.
Yes, that's it.
That's it.
So it's who you played. That's your strength of schedule.
Yeah.
So it's the average rating of all your opponents and how well did you do, the goal differential, and then we compute an average goal differential.
And then it's just the other pieces are moving depending on each of their own of that thing.
Yes.
I was trying to see how everything was moving.
The algorithm is the computation part is kind of complex. The product, once you're done, is literally taking the average rating of all your opponents. That's your strength of schedule. Taking your average goal differential modified to a max of 7. So there is some modifications that happen over just looking at the game scores. But to a max of 7, you get an average. You add the 2 together. That's your rating. You sort the ratings, from highest to lowest, and that's now again. There's more that goes into the computation of it, but it's that simple in terms of looking at the data when you're done.
What do you mean by computation of it?
So one of the questions that people always ask is, do you pre-rate teams? And it
like in the preseason before anybody has played a game, kind of thing.
Let me give you an example. So the assumption is that we make Shattuck St. Mary's like a 99.99. Like we have to put values in. There is an assumption by an awful lot of people that we put values in for teams, like we pre-rate them in some way, shape, or form. That is not correct. Literally, and this is not a joke. Our algorithm doesn't know what you were rated or ranked last week. when we run this week's algorithm, everyone starts at 0. Literally everyone starts at 0. It does like 100 million calculations depending on the age level, etc. Does like 100 million calculations, and boom, a few minutes later, it spits out all the data, and it'll do one age level at a time. It is literally each week looking at whatever the number of game scores that you have. There's little things like if you're a squirt team and you play a peewee team, it doesn't count. If you're a boys peewee team and you play a girls team of any age level, it doesn't count. If it's a forfeit, it doesn't count. There's a few rules like that we've gotten more complex about. We allow those games in the system, but we ignore them when we compute and things like that. But the computation, it's literally millions of computations to come up with these ratings for a chunk of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 teams. Because if you look at how many bantam teams there are in our system, I think it's 3,000 to 4,000 teams, something like that. Again, millions of calculations. When it's done, we get all the teams' ratings. We have an average goal differential, which you can compute once up front. That's pretty easy. We have the strength of schedule. Now, the strength of schedule kind of varies. It gets interesting computing that on the fly, because literally we have to do millions of calculations, because as teams change, the data is constantly changing, and we're looking for an equilibrium of data. It again, kind of complex. But when it's done, that's the math page. Like, you can go out on our math page, and in theory, the math all adds up. I will tell people, because we get these complaints once in a while. The math sometimes doesn't add up when, after the rankings were run, we get a game score correction, and instead of team A winning 5-1, they lost 5-1, or vice versa. And suddenly the math page doesn't add up until the next weekly update.
But it gets fixed.
So it gets fixed. Does it mean that a team could be off this week? Yeah, it does mean that.
Parents are pulling their hair out if it's week 2.
Some of that happens. And what's interesting is, early in the season, when teams only have 5 games, maybe 10, and people put in wrong scores, it has like in March, it almost like half the teams doesn't even do anything. But in September, those games can have a pretty big impact. And once in a while, you see major fluctuations in teams' ratings and rankings because of errors early in the season.
It's too bad you couldn't use April Fools with these people. That would be glorious. It's too late in the year, too many games. If it was like 10 games in and then you April Fools to everybody, oh my God, I would love it.
That would actually be really funny. Well, let me ask you this, Neil, because we've had you on here for close to an hour already, but do you have any that you can share anyway? We all know that there are some just what crazy people out there in the youth hockey world, whether they're coaches, whether they're parents, administrators, whatever it may be. Do you have any just crazy stories of people that didn't agree with the score, or didn't agree with their ranking, or any of the gripes that potentially somebody can have? Any good ones that come off the top of your head?
I'm gonna. There's a couple interesting things here. I'm gonna say you make this interesting point about games. You would think that the score to every game is black and white. It is only black and white in about 99.9% of games. There's about 0.1, 1 in 1,000, that the score is not agreed upon for some interesting reasons. And so those get very interesting.
And when you say agreed upon, what happens is, everybody kind of registers with the site, and then they put up a score, and then the other team has to like validate that score?
Nope. So
or they can.
We take scores from a single source. Now, a guest entered score has to be approved by someone, an administrator or a volunteer on the site. So if you're not a member or a volunteer where we know your email address and stuff like that, and we can reach out to you, if you're not one of those, it has to be approved. But we don't require both teams to agree. Matter of fact, neither team has to agree. If we're pulling it, if it's a game sheet game, we have a feed from game sheet. No one's approving those. But honestly, game scores are not 100% accurate. More than once, they put a goal in that 3 seconds left, there was an empty net goal. They give it to the wrong team. The score is wrong. We bring it in wrong. And so the question is, when does it get fixed? What does it take to get fixed? Do we just believe someone that says it was scored by the other team? A lot of times our rules are no, like, get it fixed in game sheet, then we'll update. And it's funny how you would think that this stuff is not that difficult, but believe it or not, there is a lot of interesting things where people can't agree on. Another one is a shootout. Real quickly, we have a rule: if two teams end regulation in a tie, and they do a shootout, it counts. But so many times people are, oh, we did it just for fun. Well, I can tell you the winning team didn't think it was for fun. It's only the losing team that just thinks it was for fun. And we hear that so often that we developed a rule 10 years ago, maybe 15, that was like, if it's worth playing, it's worth counting. That's our overtime rule. And we get it that maybe the two coaches just kind of agreed spur of the moment. But again, if you're going to do it, if it's worth doing, it's worth counting is how we have kind of described that. One of the interesting ones, I'll say a couple things. We get less crazy email than you would think. We get them, but mostly it's just someone saying your ratings are terrible. And okay, and sometimes they give you specifics. How can you rate a 3-13 team better than a 14-2 team or something like that? They're playing completely different levels of competition, or something like that. Every once in a while, they're actually pointing out. We get those every once in a while. They're pointing out actually valid mistakes in our system, which is good. We often, if they give us enough details, we'll actually look into it and try to make sure that there's no mistakes, no errors, that kind of stuff. But I will say, one of the funny stories is, and this goes back 15 years. I used to, on the first ranking of the year, I used to get them done between like 4 and 6 a.m. The first one in September. It would take me all night. It was bad. And one year I was particularly proud of myself. I got it done around 4:30. And that was actually almost early for me. And I was like, okay, I'm done. Great. And I'm cleaning up a couple things, and I go out and look at my email at about 4:45, and this guy has paragraphs ripping my ranking of his squirt team. I'm like, how did he already write? Like, there's no, I don't know if he pre-wrote it. I was confused. Just how terrible we are. So he sends that to me, and I'm like, I'm tired, but it's like I almost can't, that's a challenge. So I respond back to him, and I tell him why his team is rated, I don't know, 20th in the country instead of, a top 10 team or something like that. And, I explain it to him, and, he comes back with some more stuff, and I respond again. And by 6 a.m., I think we'd gone back and forth 3 times. And he went from hating the site to actually being a pretty big believer in the site after he gave me, he gave me a chance to explain why they were where they were. They were probably a better team than their rating, but things happen, different stuff, and he gave me a chance. But literally, like, and I'm going to ask everyone listening to this, do not stay up waiting for those first rankings and then send an email 15 minutes afterwards talking about how terrible we are. Now we just completely missed it. And along those lines, I will say, I still am involved. My son Ian is actively involved in this stuff. We do not have vested interest. Like, we are literally not looking at a single team. We do no personal evaluations of any teams. This is not subjective. It is running mathematical algorithms to compute this. So if you think we have a vendetta against your club or your team, and how we always kind of are biased against you, I can assure you that is not how this is going down. So.
Well, parents see things very objectively. There's no rose-colored glasses or subjectivity in anything that goes on in youth sports. We all should know that. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on here, Neil, and explaining the site and talking about the ins and outs of it. And, it is a source of stress for a lot of people, for sure. A lot of people who are trying to do the right things. And it's really cool to have you on here, as somebody that runs the site, and how often you talked about development and how important that is to what we're doing.
Thank you. What I didn't talk about is much, but it is just as meaningful to me as retention. So my son's team did lose 3 players who quit hockey after that season. They never returned. 2 of them played D1 athletics, a full ride to baseball, full ride lacrosse. They were great athletes. They quit hockey because they didn't enjoy the sport. And my thing is, I've always, from the very beginning, thought about retention. I think good hockey keeps people involved in the sport. I really do. It cuts down on doesn't eliminate parent and coach bad behavior, but good hockey helps. And then, I think when I think it prevents some of the burnout. I hate seeing teams going 0-39 on the season or 1-42, because I'm just seeing kids walking away. Now, in my son's case from 22 years ago, they actually did really well, and it was the same effect of people like, why, like this is stupid. Why are we going to winning 15-0? And they literally walked away from the sport.
What a cool why.
Yeah.
What a really, really, really cool why, and so different than I ever thought it was. So I apologize for all the mud that I may have slung at my hockey rankings. It's not, my beef's not with you. It's how people are using the rankings, and if they used them in the right way, how you're saying and stuff, it would make the hockey world a better place. It's really, really, really cool. I'm really glad you took the time to come on here and explain all this to us, because it's freaking awesome, actually. Very cool.
Yeah, and we only really touched the surface. I mean, and I'm not saying you want me back on because some of it gets pretty dry at times, but there's a lot more to it. I mean, there are variations on how, again, whether it's a league, a tournament, a coach, a manager, a parent, a player can look at this stuff. But hopefully we've done some tweaks over the years to try to assist in this. We actually think we have done some things to help promote positive behaviors and dissuade negative. I don't think we've solved the problem, if you will. There will still be people who look at it and use it kind of incorrectly, as you're appropriately pointing out. But bottom line is, if you want your ratings to be high, develop your darn players, and that's how that solves the whole problem. Develop them.
Well, Neil, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. And if you'll indulge us, you said you had a little bit more to say. So we do have a 10 questions at the end that we do with our guests that we housed on our Hockey Think Tank community, which is at community.thehockeythinktank.com. So you got a couple more minutes for a couple rapid fire 10 questions?
Go for it.
Okay, awesome. Well, so if you want to hear this, go to community.thehockeythinktank.com. But for this part of the podcast, Neil, like, this was so awesome to have you on. I think I've said awesome 19 times in the last 14 seconds, but that's okay. We really, really, really appreciate your time.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit more and educate your users, because they are the kind of people who I think are receptive to exactly what I have to say. So
For sure.
100%.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.